Welcome to Ozarks History, my Ozark friends. This is Vincent Anderson. We are so excited to take this journey with you today, and let's go into talking about, in our series here, in our documentary series, fishing tourism in the Ozarks. And we're going to begin with our first subject, Elmo Hurst. Now, Elmo Hurst was one of the first guides and outfitters that became regionally and actually nationally known across the Upper White River region here in northern Arkansas. Elmo possessed a profound expertise of the White River, having navigated its waters, and not only the White River, also down here at Crooked Creek, the Buffalo River. This man knew the rivers and the area like the back of his hand. Elmo Hurst established the benchmark for guides and outfitters of this region, predating the constructions of the Norfolk Dam and the Bull Shoals Dam. So let's begin with Elmo personally. Elmo was born down near Big Flat, Arkansas, between Big Flat and Lone Rock, Arkansas. And his family relocated up here, north of Cotter, a couple miles, right here on the White River, on this area and this location right here. After graduating from Cotter High School, Elmo went to Jonesboro, Arkansas, and attended Jonesboro State A&M. And there at A&M, which today is known as Jonesboro ASU, Elmo graduated with a degree in Animal Husbandry and Agriculture. Now, after returning home here, Elmo began working with his father on the farm right here. Also, another 24/7 job was ferrying people across the White River from Baxter County side over across to the Marion County side. It was a long, arduous job, but you had to be on call 24/7. That job kept Elmo busy. But all of a sudden, in 1930, we have a new bridge going in at Cotter, Arkansas. It's called the R.M. Ruthven Bridge. It's also called the Rainbow Bridge by the locals around here. Now, there was a toll across there. When the toll was lifted, there was no longer really a demand to come across down here, right north of Cotter, and go across the White River on the Denton Ferry. And so it's no longer in demand. So Elmo needed to decide what he was going to do with his life and for a vocation at that time. Elmo married Lucille Marston July 28, 1933, and they started right here the Hurst Fishing Service the self-same year. Perched atop the White River's embankment on the Baxter County side, Elmo and Lucille lived in a house right here with a sweeping view of the White River. Their house was accessible by a long meandering set of concrete steps that go up through here. Today, these steps bear the marks of long, frequent use. Despite its elevation and the location here on this little knoll, their home experienced multiple floods. And at times, before the construction of the Bull Shoals Dam, the Hurst family had to use a garden hose to rinse out their house full of mud and snakes. Elmo's fame and star continued to climb for all of his hard work throughout the 1940s. His picture started being publicized in national magazines such as Poplar Mechanics and Outdoor Life as companies started advertising their fishing lures. One of the lures was like the #1 Hawaiian Wiggler with a tagline, "It gets bass and not weeds." Additionally, Elmo was getting publicity for float trips from the Missouri Pacific Railroad. Later on, Hurst Fishing Service was getting recognition also for the advertising in Ozark Playground Association, a regional publication throughout all the Ozarks. Now, initially hesitant about the Bull Shoals Dam construction between 1949 and 1952, the Hurst family soon recognized its positive impact for having the dam here. Elmo adapted from warm water fishing for catfish along with any other kind of sunfish available, and these included black crappie, bluegill, green sunfish, largemouth bass, smallmouth bass, long-eared sunfish, red-ear sunfish, red spotted sunfish, spotted bass, and warmouth, along with a boatload of different kind of catfish here in the White River. Elmo had to adapt to cold water fishing on the White River when the Bull Shoals Dam came in. Its chilly waters hosted German brown and rainbow trout, and the rainbow trout back then was actually called jack salmon. Now, at one point in his career, Elmo owned up to 35 boats, each accompanied by a corresponding guide on the river in his business. Hurst Fishing Service ran boats on the White River, the Buffalo River, and Crooked Creek at one time. Hurst also provided freshly cooked meals with a variety of options, including steaks, chicken, fish, pork chops, anything you would ever want in the meat selection, accompanied by a large array of vegetables. Now, before the group's arrival for a fishing experience on the river, a dedicated cook was chosen, and a commissary boat would go out before them and set up a lunch at a lunch site on some island or on the edge of the river. Now, this was the standard service that Elmo established, and by the time the party had reached the location, lunch would be ready. Now, after lunch, the commissary boat would load up and continue to a designated overnight spot where they would arrange tents and prepare dinner for that night. Now, for a 3-day camping experience, ample ice would be brought in along, but for a 4-day expedition, additional ice would be delivered by an outfitter representative somewhere along the river. Most participants brought their fishing gear, and those who could not arrange it, they could rent the equipment straight from Elmo Hurst. Now, according to Forstwood, Elmo set the high standards and had integrity and ran his business so well, he was recognized throughout the Ozarks. Elmo and Lucille Hurst were owners and operators of the Hurst Fishing Service until they sold it in 1965. Elmo was a lifetime resident of Cotter, Arkansas, and he passed away this life on Christmas Eve, 2007, at the age of 98 years old. "16 tons on the White River." Tennessee Ernie Ford was a favorite and common guest of Elmo Hurst here at the Hurst Fishing Service over the years. And during his prime, Tennessee Ernie held the title of the highest paid entertainer in America on primetime television. His albums achieved sales in the millions, and his live performances consistently reached full capacity. Tennessee's rich, smooth baritone voice garnered him notoriety with songs such as 16 Tons, Shotgun Boogie, and The Battle of Davy Crockett. Tennessee Ernie Ford socialized with both presidents and diverse array of celebrities and solidified his status as a prominent public figure across America. The Ford Motor Company sponsored his TV show on NBC for 121 episodes from 1956 to 1961. Tennessee Ernie's show stood out for one distinctive feature. He consistently concluded nearly every episode with a hymn, spiritual tune, or a song that expressed faith. Now, this struck a chord across America's fruited plain, and Tennessee Ernie Ford was affectionately known as the King of the Pea Pickers, but he was also an avid fisherman. Tennessee Ernie was a regular here at the Hurst Fishing Service, and annually he was brought here by the Ford Motor Company's executive. Elmo Hurst said, "Tennessee Ernie Ford was the friendliest fella you ever saw. He would rather associate with a bunch of guides out here than the big shots." Now, Tennessee preferred to camp outside and not in a cabin, and he wanted to be with the guides. You see, the executives would have their campfire and then they would talk business. But Tennessee wanted to be out with the guides, laughing, talking, and just telling stories. Now, each time Tennessee arrived here at Cotter at Elmo Hurst to fish, you could always count on a surprise guest or two, and the local interlopers would accidentally intrude or quickly make an encounter, something that would be memorable for them around this area. Now, Tennessee Ernie preferred camping on a few different islands on the White River. Now, one was at the mouth of the Buffalo River because there wasn't any other way to get there except on a boat, so he could be kind of remote and alone. Other islands on the White River were the Bayless Island, upstream from Cotter, and the Redbud Island, downstream of Cotter. Now, if we took time along the White River, maybe we too could find that same solace that Tennessee Ernie Ford endeavored to find here on the White River, whether we load 16 tons or not. If I'm going to die, I would rather die on the White River than anywhere I know. Now, Elmo Hurst only had one person die on him on a float trip, and his name was James Clinton, or J.C. Pentecost. Now, Mr. Pentecost was a retired contractor and an avid fisherman who was rather a robust, heavy-set, 65-year-old gentleman at the time. Now, Mr. Pentecost would often drive down from his home in Springfield, Missouri, to the early mornings to fish at the Hurst Fishing Service, and he refused to stay in a motel around here because he enjoyed staying at one of the Hurst cabins right here close to the river. Now, on Tuesday, August 13th, 1940, Mr. Pentecost was not really feeling well, and so he went to his doctor there in Springfield, and his doctor advised him not to make any trip too far away from home. Mr. Pentecost replied to the doctor, "Well, if I'm going to die, I'd rather die on the White River than anywhere I know." That evening, Mr. Pentecost and Elmo Hurst were talking on the phone, and Mr. Pentecost inquired how was the fishing on the White River, and Elmo said, "Mr. Pentecost, the river's in good shape, and the bass are hitting really good today." Now, early the next morning, Mr. Pentecost bid his wife goodbye for the very last time, and he drove down from Springfield down here to Cotter, Arkansas. And Mr. Pentecost arrived at the Hurst Fishing Service. He was in pretty rough shape, but he found the fishing was purely heavenly. On August 14th, 1940, James Clinton, J.C. Pentecost, fulfilled his own prophecy that morning as he died in a boat fishing on the White River. Elmo Hurst had to make that last phone call to Springfield, Missouri, to J.C. Pentecost's wife. James Clinton J.C. Pentecost was buried in the Maple Park Cemetery in Springfield, Missouri. So now we have found a way to traverse death's chilly waters, spend the rest of our days and the rest of our life fishing on the White River. We'll see you soon.